Hello, hello. I think we're doing good here. I've got my headphones in so I can actually hear the music. And I do want to, um, I suppose, I guess, welcome back to the channel for everybody who tunes in later, I suppose. Um, Doing week 2 here of new Russian music where I give you a roundup of not all of the music that I listened to this last week in Russia, because there were a number of albums which I just kind of discarded. Honestly, there's going to be a few of them this week that we talk about, which I was close to discarding, but I figured I would talk about regardless. And yeah, we're just going to talk a little bit about what was released this week. There are definitely some albums that we're going to talk about as well, which did not come out this week, but which just came to my attention this week. That's a pretty common occurrence, especially here at the beginning of the year. As we move forward into the year and the release calendar becomes a bit more clear, then that doesn't happen as often. But still, it's the second week, I guess. It's the second week of the new year, so small backlog, and yeah. So we're just gonna get right into it. And honestly, the first album that we have to talk about, the biggest album of the week, is uh, SZN by OG Buda. Now, I do also want to, before we go any further, I do want to let everybody know that I did do a test run with audio earlier today. So I figured out, I think, how to get it to work. So we're going to do that. I'm actually just going to switch over to that right now. I'm going to go full screen, share system audio. You're going to get the infinity view right here. And then we're going to jump over to OG Buddha here. Just make sure, click back. Okay, yeah. So you can see the video. Everything is fine. I am not really going to be paying attention to YouTube. I'm just going to be focused on what I have in front of my screen. So this is, without a doubt, the biggest album to come out thus far this year, which is not a huge surprise. It came out, I want to say, last Friday on the 10th, if I remember correctly. Yes, it was the 10th. And for those of you who don't know, and I'll be completely honest, I am not one of those people who has followed OG Buddha for a long time. OG Buddha is, I would say, probably bigger, one of the biggest names in the Russian rap game right now. Some will maybe argue otherwise, but I think it's pretty fair to say I'm not a huge fan. I'll just be honest right now. I'll get that out of the way. Um, but yes, so he dropped this on last Friday, SZN, and this is his first album of the year. He says it's a mixtape, but it's also just kind of being labeled as an album. He also said he's going to release quite a few more of these throughout the year. Now, even though a lot of people are calling this an album, I think a mixtape is probably a better way of looking at it. Um, OG Buddha has, like I said, I'm not super deep into his backlog of music. I know he does have a bit of a slippery style where um, it's not that his styles change up a ton, but he does jump around a little bit within the rap and hip hop genre. And that's kind of what we see here on the SZN mixtape or album, however you want to clarify it. I'll be completely honest. The first time I listened to this, it felt like a mixtape. It felt like just a bunch of half-baked ideas kind of slapped together. But I do want to make one caveat to that. It's the first half of the album or the first half of the mixtape, which feels that way to me. And it's a long one. There are 20 tracks here. 20 tracks. Now, part of that I think has to do with this normal or what's become kind of a mainstay in the era of streaming, which is rappers will release these massive bloated albums with 20 tracks on them. Typically, it's pretty common. You see that we've seen this with Kanye West. We've seen this with Drake. Those are the two main offenders that I can think of right away when they release just a huge album and over half of it is garbage. And that's kind of how I feel about OG Buddha's SCN. The first half, not great. I know you can't see it right now, but for the first few days that this was out, um, there's only 2 songs in the chart right now, right? Slyozy Aishi and then Wild Kudno with, the first weekend that this came out, so last weekend, out of the 20 tracks, 11 of them were in the top 100. So it goes, that's a pretty, I guess, good way of letting you understand the quality of these tracks. Just because if most of them fell out of the top 100 that quickly, yeah, they didn't really deserve to be there in the first place. Now, that said, like I said, the first half is kind of a mixed bag, but starting from Primoy Fear, I would say that things start to pick up a little bit. Definitely, without a doubt, the highlight of the album is number 87 in the charts. The one that's number 25 in the charts, Slyozy Aishi, First Day Out, is the song that he wrote the day after, I guess, his long time girlfriend broke up with him. And it feels throughout this mixtape that it's just that sad boy rap. And I get it. It's probably an emotional thing, but reading around on the internet too, it turns out that this is not the first album he's done this. That evidently, the album he released in the second half of last year was also the mopey, whiny type of lyrics. So, which again, some people love that. I can do without it. A, a little bit's fine, but when you have a ton of it, it just kind of feels, I don't know, what's the term? Not navel gazing, but just kind of get over it. Anyway, this track right here, though, Wild Ways, number 87 in the charts, which realistically should be 25. We could switch these places, but I think this is probably the best track on the album. And I don't know, it was the one I enjoyed the most. Um, just give it a listen here. I had these queued up, but I guess with the VPN, yeah, it's gonna queue it up again once more. So give it a second here. We'll give it a little bit of a listen. Um, seriously? Okay, let's try this one more time. More of a pop, radio-friendly vibe.
Счастье разрушил сам. Снова иду ко дну. Время привыкать, я с него начинаю.
To be fair, it also, if you can understand the lyrics, it also is doing the sad boy, um, like I'm on the bottom of the world type thing. Everything sucks, but it definitely is doing it in a much more, I guess, interesting way. So realistically, again, the biggest problem I have with this mixtape slash album is that it feels like a mixtape, and it feels like a mixtape where there was no thought put into how the tracks flowed together. I'm sure it's possible to reorganize the tracks here to give them a bit more of some coherence together. But as it stands, the first half, and you can actually see it in the length of the tracks too, right? Around the halfway point, we start to get tracks which are 2.5 to 3 minutes long, some of them 3.5 minutes long. These are full fledged songs with some thought put into it. Whereas the first half of the mixtape is just, well, half baked ideas that had to go on to something. So maybe this would have been better split into two, but as it is, this is I think a pretty good example of quantity over quality. But the second half is solid. I would say give that check, a check out if you're into it. I do want to take a moment though to talk about two like depths of the underground when we're talking about rap, because OG Buda is, like I said, he's one of the biggest. If we go to his page on Yandex Music, you can see he has over 3.2 million active monthly listeners, which is quite large for Yandex. I don't know what the largest artists have, but 3.2 million is pretty good. Um, These next two I'm going to talk about are, like I said, they're literally as underground as you can get. Tall Store here has, if we take a look, I want to say like maybe it's under 10. I'm pretty sure. Oh no, 13. Okay, so he's picked up a few. Um, and I just got to put the artwork up here for a second. I don't know if this is a meme. I'm pretty sure it's a meme. This looks like the type of stuff, but the I don't know if this is Zoomer or the Alpha generation or what the hell you want. It looks like that sort of post ironic irony, post ironic irony. Is that a can I anyway? Where like they know it intentionally looks bad, but it kind of works. And honestly, the music's pretty good. I don't know how serious he is here, but even if it is a joke to him, the production and the lyrics are respectable. And I think this album is, even though it's literally 6 tracks, clocking in at under 10 minutes, and of course it's doing this. I think that this album right here, or this EP, I should say, is maybe a better use of your time. I mean, you're just not going to take much of it.
Во мне эфорт супер, 5 турбин, коробка Uber. Со мной милая сука, придет жопа, греет.
It's completely idiotic. I get that, but
Со мной милая сука, придет жопа, греет. Со мной милая сука, делай блоу.
there's something idiotically delightful in it.
Дриблинг я сделал быстро, ты слышишь визги. Трикстер, зовите трикстер, фликс так как сись, я низко, ты очень низко, пристрой.
So, is it something that he probably recorded in his bedroom? Possibly. I don't know. But I would rather promote this than OG Buda. I think he's doing fine on his own with his average monthly listener. And the other one I want to talk about is this group here, Unbearabledie, which is a rather bleak one. Maybe they are. It's going to take a while to open up because I'm on a VPN and Yandex is a Russian site. So they have 14 listeners a month, 14 active. So this is just to give you a heads up. The sound quality here is as raw as the weather is and the apartment blocks on this cover. It sounds like it was recorded maybe in this garage back here. But just keep that in mind. At the same time, though, it's going to happen every single time. So I guess get used to that. At the same time, it feels like there's actual thought and emotion put into this. There's quite a bit of. It's going to sound odd. There's quite a bit of throughout the little album here. Very almost lo-fi. This is probably the most upbeat track. I'm just going to throw that out there right now.
Я ненавижу вас так сильно, мне слов не передать все ваши чувства и слова, как однодневный календарь. Батя, люблю вас до гроба, но прости мне похуй, знай, как там дела, твое здоровье, наебашенный в дерьмо опять. Вроде я наши супер, как вас здесь различать, если у вас не...
So I'm going to stop sharing for a moment too, just because I have no idea what the audio levels are like too. So if I don't have any like hardcore stuff to look into that either. But so if the audio levels are too high or if it's I don't know, let me know. Send a message in the chat if you're watching this or in the comments after this goes just to the regular live section. Let me know. But yeah, again, very simple. I actually don't even know where these guys are from. Neither of them, to be honest. But I mean, again, OG Buda, go ahead, check that out. SZN is fine. It's a very long time investment, all things considered. With Tallstar and Unbearabledie, I would say give those younger folks a check out. It's not as well produced. They're still honing their craft. I mean, like, let's be real. They have a it's very, very underground. But I feel like there's something more there. I don't know. It feels more real to me. And I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying it's the best thing ever, but I'm throwing them up as a counterexample to OG Buda. So yeah. Anyway, moving on. We're through that now. We're gonna move into uh, we're gonna move into the more classical stuff. Yeah. Okay, there we go. We've got the infinity screen. All right. So what we have here is this is a pianist, Yuri Vinogradov, and we have 10 pretty short tracks. I mean, the longest one here we can see is, I guess, 3.5 minutes long. These are, in his own words, kind of from down here. These are 10 short preludes for piano of an improvisational character. And it is, to kind of summarize in brief, an attempt to push the light out of us into the world around. Honestly, again, this is a bit of a palate cleanser. It's the type of very light, airy, just simple piano music that is kind of good when you just need to clear your head a little bit. So I don't, is it gonna? Okay. Oh, it finally started to play. Great. So yeah, right. Nothing melodic there necessarily that you can jump onto. That hence the improvisational nature of the tracks. But by and large, it's a nice little album to throw on. Like I said, when you need to clear your mind a little bit, or when you just want to, again, I guess, relax, or even just do a little bit of work. I hate to say that with music, something to turn on when you're doing some work, but there are certain albums and certain music which almost feel designed for that. It's not necessarily a bad thing. And I think that that is a bit like this, where it's music that tickles something in the back of your brain, but it's also hard to grasp. Like there's no melody for your brain to easily latch onto. So yeah, it just kind of flitters around like a butterfly. Okay, the next one is an album which it's not really classical or anything like that. It's what I would typically label as other. Um, it's part field recording of actual rivers from across Russia. It's part arranged chamber instruments, and it's part deep and menacing electronics, right? Like, I don't know what genre that is. I know they have it as electronic here, but I feel like when we think of electronic music, we think of things that are much more electronic. So this is, I sometimes just call things other because it's not quite, it's avant garde, is experimental, however you want to think of it. Um, this is an EP, which, as the artist says, it's designed to remind us that each river has its own rhythm, its own harmony, its own groove. All of the tracks are dedicated to a specific river here in Russia. And I mean, again, ostensibly, this is ambient music, but all four of these tracks have an undercurrent, and it's really easy to be swept away by them. So while the winter is currently hiding um, the currents of the real rivers away under ice, why don't we plunge into the currents of these meditative tracks just a little bit? And yes, all of those puns were kind of there on purpose. So let's let this load. You can hear the field recordings there, the water. menacing electronics in the background. So it's almost the opposite to Vinogradov's Izgnanny Svet, the piano one that we looked at just before, in the sense that if that Vinogradov's album was dedicated more, like I said, to this sort of light, airy music, which is easy to just kind of let be, the NHNV Spaces River album is the type of music that you can't ignore. It almost demands your attention. Luckily, though, it's just 4 tracks, and they're all about 3 minutes long, so it's not a huge time sink. And yeah, it's kind of nice. Like I said, there's something rather meditative about it. So give it a look. Again, before we go any further, I will say that the links to all of these albums will be in the description when it's no longer a live video, when it goes up to the live section on the YouTube page. Most of the links will redirect you to Spotify, but with the exception of 2, they will be to the Bandcamp page, because 2 of the albums are not available on Spotify. The Vinogradov one, and then one we'll talk about here in just a second. But now that we've looked a little bit at some sort of classical and maybe other style music, we are going to actually talk about 2 albums that are electronic music, straight up electronic music. The first one is from In the Dark Row, and it is Cyberpunk Next Gen. Honestly, the easiest way to think about this is I don't know. In the Dark Row decided to take the music from Geometry Dash, for those of you who are familiar with that, and then add elements of the Doom style Argent metal. And there are also some occasional flashes of that frenetic Dragon Force style soloing. But honestly, it all works together, and it's kind of hectic, but kind of fun, almost video gamey in a lot of ways, but not exactly. And it's not a bad thing. And of course, yeah, I thought it would be smart to preload the tracks, but that didn't work out. Do me like it. So you get the idea. There are 7 tracks. They're all similar in some ways. Not all of them are as driving. Some of them are a little bit more laid back. But I know that there is just a huge amount of this style of music out there. But if you dig it, then I guess give this a shot. It's definitely a fun listen. It was one that I found myself kind of getting into as I was listening to it. All right, now the next one, it is a Bandcamp one, but I will not be able to play it on Bandcamp because it's locked and I didn't pay for it. So we're gonna jump over to Contact in a second. But the album is The Product Is You. It's not by Body Music. It's actually by Disco Morato and Velax. I know that it says Colombia is the location. That is the location of the album label. Disco Morato and Velax are actually from Russia. And if you actually scroll down a little bit, you can find that here, right? Electronic Russia, right there. About this album, too, before we give it a listen, we've got kind of these 4 tracks that sort of throbbing, as they say down here, dark disco, electronic goodness. And there's a little bit of a text right here. It's basically, it explores a near future in which technology has advanced to the point where humanity lives in a virtual world of sex and hedonism. This is a bit more cyberpunk than KMFDM, but there's definitely a healthy dose of that like 2000s industrial sound in these tracks as well. So we're gonna go with the opening track here. I'm gonna jump out of that for a second. So yeah, you get the idea. It's 4 tracks. Again, all similarly in that vibe, but you know, if if you like it, you like it, and it's a solid EP, all things considered. So, all right, we are. Let's see, we've been through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 albums, and we have 10 albums left. We're gonna move into the rock category. The next 9 albums are rock. The final album, just like last week with the Fish album, the sound and bioelectrical signals of Fish album. This week we also have a bit of a surprise waiting in the wings. But yeah, right now we're gonna move into the rock category, which I don't know if it's just because it's the beginning of the year, but there have been a lot more rock releases. I haven't really seen any pop or indie releases just yet. And aside from a few kind of instrumental or experimental ones and some electro ones, it's been pretty dry, even in the rap department, which is a bit odd. So, but let's get into rock. And I'll go ahead and put the screen back up. Okay. So now this is Skrizhali, Пока, горит, звезда, часть первая. This is technically an artist out of Minsk in Belarus, but basically all of the songs are in Russian. I don't really have a song that I want to highlight here. In fact, this was an album that originally, when I was listening to it, I was tempted to not include it in the list, but I feel like I kind of need to. For people who are familiar with rock, there's a concept that you're maybe not as familiar with, which is butt rock. And butt rock is like the Nickelback style rock, where it's that just sort of type of rock and roll. I'll put it like this. Go back to butt rock. Butt rock doesn't really exist as a genre here in Russia. This is basically Отечественный rock, like fatherland, motherland rock. But Отечественный rock is kind of a close substitute for butt rock. Like I said, butt rock in the States is your Nickelback, the kind of blase, radio friendly, not too in your face style rock and roll. It's the type of music. How do I have it here? It's got middle aged, paunchy, and balding divorced energy. This is skoof rock for those of you who know your Russian slang. Anyway, like I said, I put the album on, and the first few tracks, I was almost tempted to just be done with it and turn it off. But the thing is, butt rock, and I guess this sort of Отечественный skoof rock, as we might want to talk about it, it's not inherently bad. And the more I listened to it, the more it was kind of, I found myself enjoying it. It's not something that I would actively go back and listen to, but if you're not familiar with sort of the Russian domestic rock market, again, this is technically from Belarus, but it's got the same energy and it's in Russian. This is the type of stuff that is like on, I don't know, Russian rock festivals. Again, it's not inherently bad. It's just not good either. It just is. But who knows? Maybe you'll enjoy it. Well, that's kind of. This is honestly a bit more energetic than it typically can be. Also, there are quite a few acoustic tracks.
Так повезло, ведь ему случилось полюбить. Смерти назло, сможет он это пережить. Дарят ветра, запахи трав ее волос, чтоб на века он за собой все пронес. Наступит день и час, жди, не торопись, настигнет месть всех тех, кто отнял ее жизнь. Наступит день и час, и сбудется все так, в огне утопит всех озлобленный ведьмак.
Just for those of you who don't understand Russian, it is a song about The Witcher too. Like there is nothing more, I don't know, butt rock than that. It is literally scoof energy 100%. So yeah. And realistically, this is not all that well produced. It's just fine. This is a relatively small artist from what I remember. We can take a look at their listeners here. Okay, they got a decent number there, but you know. So if it sounded interesting to you, give it a listen. It's not bad. I'll put the links up, like I said, after the video goes up. But the next two albums as well are similarly albums that I listened to and I had some major problems with, but at the same point in time, it's kind of like, you know, what the hell? I'll throw them up here. So the next one up here is by Dave Joke, which is a name that feels appropriate. Ya Yedu Vray. This is musically, there's something going on here. Dave Joke does some good guitar playing. A lot of this feels very tongue-in-cheek. It's a mix of glam and power metal, somewhere between Tenacious D and Steel Panther in terms of like seriousness as well. But yeah, one of the reasons I almost did not include this is the lyrics are so goddamn cringe at times. I almost just turned it off. I couldn't deal with it. It's that sort of lobotomized rock and roll is forever. You're not gonna stop the rock and roll. And there's literally a song Kiski Lubit Visky, which I literally wanted to shoot myself in the face, like when I started hearing it. So yeah, Dave Joke does some pretty good guitar playing. No stopping there, but I seriously recommend that he actively, I don't know, consider finding somebody who's a little bit better at writing lyrics. But if you can get past the lyrics, it's just pretty solid, stupid fun. And as soon as you hear the title track, you'll get it, which should start any second now. I would assume so. Now there it is. Okay, now we should be good. So yeah, musically, I got no qualms with it. Everything is good lyrically. But again, if you don't understand Russian, then it doesn't really matter to you. You can just sort of rock out. And this next album, which is Mental Decay by Eternal Stasis. Similar story to the Dave Joke album. This is really good, that kind of epic metal music. The instrumentation's done really well, and honestly, the female singer, the lead singer here, she does a pretty good job, and she sings in English. The names of the songs are all in English, but at times it kind of feels like a square peg in a round hole situation where like she doesn't quite. Again, pronunciation isn't everything, but it feels like she can't quite get it because it's in English. I don't know. Sometimes the singing feels a bit off. The lyrics aren't brilliant either. But if you can ignore that type of thing, then this is probably not a bad album. Again, we'll kind of, yep, there we go. Okay. This is also their first album too. So um, actually, a lot of these have been first albums. Dave Jokes was the first album too, but I don't know why this is this going to play. There we go. So yes, we have the strings. It's always a tried and true sign that we are dealing with epic metal. Also, the artwork is, yeah, pretty. I forgot how slow.
Feel so anxious. My open wounds remind me what I just become. And each cut on my soul has turned.
Maybe you can hear what I'm talking about with the singing. Anyway, yeah. So you get the idea. Again, musically, everything is hitting. There's nothing wrong there. Again, nothing earth shattering, but it's not bad. And you know, when you heard the singing, so maybe you heard a little bit of what I was talking about. It's more evident in other songs, but yeah, it's definitely not a bad album at all. And even though I considered not including it in the discussion today, I realized that it's not horrible. Like if the last three albums that I talked about, if I had to on a scale of I guess like a 1 to 10, I would, you know, they'd like a 5 or a 6. They're not bad. They're not good. They're just kind of whatever. They're music that if you heard it, again, everybody has their own preferences. So maybe some of you out there heard this and are super interested in it. But I think by and large, it's not bad music. And these are all, for the most part, relatively small, younger artists that we've been looking at today. So in the future, maybe they'll produce something groundbreaking. But for their first tries, it's respectable. The next one here we have is Das Bangcock with Смотри. This is, again, an EP we have here. Really short one. I actually just listened to this a few hours ago. And it's rough around the edges, to be sure. But that's fair. Again, this is a younger punk group. And listening to the music, I was reminded of three groups in particular. Musically, Death from Above, 1979, and Murder City Devils, which is kind of a nice driving combination there. You hear it a lot in the bass lines. And then the female singer has this kind of, I don't, squirrely energy. I don't know how to say it. She sounds a lot like Josephine Olsen from the Swedish indie pop rock group Love Is All. And it all works together. Everything is hitting when it goes. So let's give it a listen too. Let's do that. Let's do that. Okay. That really loose bass. Just, I don't know, death from above calls to mind. And let's find some of the vocals. So yeah, that's probably not going to be for everybody, but I was not. I don't know. I was pleasantly surprised. I was looking at the artwork. I was not expecting much. God damn, with the VPN things, do not like to open on Yandex Music. I would be using. Yeah, there we go. Thank you, Yandex. So yeah, this looks like a bunch of people. I don't know. Jesus Christ, I don't like fresh out of high school. Well, I guess they're not high schoolers, but they're quite young. So I was not expecting too much from the album, and like I said, was pleasantly surprised. All right, there are. Well, let's just keep going here. This next one is talking about it in the metal tab. It's not quite metal. Afehrist is actually like a hardcore band along the lines of Converge, and they released an EP last year. I don't remember the name of it, but this year, or I guess probably at the end of last year, they asked a number of, you can see here, 1, 2, 3, 4 different people who do remixes to remix one of the tracks, Lane, off of their EP from last year. And the Lane song is based on an anime. I actually had to look it up. It's based on an anime with like this Matrix-esque, kind of a Matrix in reverse type storyline where the girl is supposed to go into the alternate reality and save the alternate reality, not save the people. I don't know. It doesn't matter. I don't like this anime, whatever. Anyway, like the idea of it being connected to an anime and this Matrix style storyline really fits with the results because we have this it's a hardcore song, but they've produced these really glitched out reworkings, and it just makes perfect sense together. It sounds like a pissed off computer having an epileptic fit. So let's give it a listen too. Might be a bit abrasive when it comes in. Just prepare yourselves. If it comes in. Oh yeah, this one's actually not as bad as some of them can be. Yeah, if you like hardcore and you like electronic music, it's a fun little EP. I was not expecting this at all, and actually was kind of when I first turned it on unsure, but yeah, it has grown on me. And again, like a lot of albums, it's gotten very short. This is actually something I'm going to take an aside here real fast. Something I've noticed uh, over the last year, I guess, and maybe this is something in the States as well. To be completely honest, I haven't listened to any non-Russian music for like at least 9 months now. And it feels like here, most artists, not always, but many artists, when they release albums, they're not actually albums, they're EPs, which is fair. Like this is an EP 100%, 6 tracks, it's like 10 minutes long, it's less than 10 minutes probably. But even when you have artists that will release longer albums, and we'll look at one of them here in just a little bit, in 2 or 3 from now. A lot of times you'll have 10 or 12 tracks, but they'll still be only around the 20-minute mark. And it's one of those things where it's not a grindcore album. So when you have 10 or 12 tracks, it still feels like an album. But obviously, growing up in the era of CDs, it always felt like bands tried to fill up as much of that disc as possible. So you would have 10 tracks, but they would try to stretch out those tracks, or they would add extras and stuff on it. So maybe I'm just misremembering. That very well could be the case. I might actually have to go back and look at some of those albums from my high school years and see how long they actually were. But anyway, yeah, moving along. I don't really know. I got kind of sidetracked on that one. The next one, I, it was almost bound to be included just simply because of the names of the artists. But as we'll find out, it actually deserves to be here. This is Chocolate Grapes and Olung's Tales. It is a split by Cumboy Catapulta and Avocado Pornujo. Just fantastic. Both of these are grindcore death metal groups out of Tomsk, far, far in Siberia there. And the lyrics ostensibly are all focused on pornographic level content. That's assuming that something is actually being sung here. I'm just going to be completely honest. Listening to this split, all I could basically make out were guttural sounds and animal squeals. So aside from the names, and I mean, you can see the names of the songs on the screen there. Aside from that, there's really nothing inappropriate to be found in these songs that I can tell. It honestly felt like a meme album, and the names of the groups made me think that they were like just jokes. But the technical proficiency with which these guys play is pretty damn good. So I don't know. God help whatever is happening in Tomsk to produce two groups of this caliber. But I do hope that they continue on their weird little trails. So let's take a listen to Jingle Balls and Tangerines in Holes. Hell of a title. This is the track on the split that they are both part of. So brace yourselves. It is grind death metal. All right. I gotta. Any day now. This is kind of absurd, isn't it? Like I said, I thought this was a meme album. There's the grind. You can hate me later. I know that's what the overwhelming majority of people do not want to hear, but it's honestly not bad for what it is. So, yes, hell of a title. I will. Moving along. If you enjoyed it, you enjoyed it. So, all right, the next one we're going to get into is this is I would have considered this to be I guess, top pick. This is Burning Flag. This is their Volume 1 album. The reason this isn't the top pick is because this punk group out of St. Petersburg, this is actually a compilation album. They've been around for a decade now, and this is just a sort of taster of of what they, I guess, have produced over that decade. This is that sort of, it's very hard, fast, and pissed off hardcore punk. Although it's punk that has a tinge of metal. There's some thrashy guitars, and the vocals are especially metal. So, yeah, again, this is a 10-track album, in quotes, but you're basically looking at 20 minutes. So let's give it a listen. It's again, if you like hardcore punk with a bit of some thrash going on in it, then feels punky right here, right? A lot of punk, a lot of sort of thrash metal. It's a good combination. It works together. And I had never heard of Burning Flag before, but I definitely will be interested to see what they put out in the future. Um, Hopefully, an actual full length with a bunch of new music that we can talk about then as well. All right, we're getting close to the end here, so let's just push through. Up next, we have an album EP. Again, I don't know what to call this. This is by Three Karma. Three Karma. I don't know exactly. Ниже нуля. Um, I actually enjoyed this. I had a good time with this. It's very short, but this is a female led alt rock group. It's got that kind of powerful, emotional lyrics and singing for anyone who wants something that will wake them up inside. And I know the Evanescence comparison is maybe not the best and it's maybe not totally fair, but it does have that vibe to some degree, and that's not an insult. Aside from Evanescence, there's a lot of the kind of Russian alt rock sound, I would say, from the early 2000s into the 2010s. So this is a pretty solid track. The second track is pretty good too. I guess I'll play a little bit of two of them right now. The load times with the VPN are atrocious, so I have to just kind of fill dead space.
Пропадать в омуте на чужом береге. Не смотри мне в глаза, я приду с севера. Забывать времени, уходить от чужих. Я с тобой этот мир разделю на двоих. Протяну шепотом, я снова склеила. Небеса шелковые, мы с тобой встретимся за твоей.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. I don't have anything other than that to say. Nisnatibia, the fifth track here, which I was going to play, it is like Shopatham, but it goes even a little bit harder. Livnyom is, I believe, an acoustic track. So it varies too. It's not just that sort of alt rock song. I mean, like, I guess technically it's all alt rock if you want to get into it, but there is some variation in the songs too. So over its short runtime and its short track list, it doesn't keep doing the same thing over and over again. It's quite good. And for this week, I was quite impressed. It was one of those albums or EPs again that I kept coming back to. Yeah, it was definitely one of my it was one of the more enjoyable listens this week. All right, up next, we're going to talk about my favorite album of the week. And this is actually one that I wasn't really sure about earlier on in the week, but it's going to sound weird. Today, I understood as I was getting prepared for it, as for this live stream, I understood that this was the album. It's Ur by Egribor. Egribor is basically a one man. It's two people, but one of the guys plays bass, so it's basically a one man band, and it says black metal, but we'll talk about that in a second. This is the third or fourth album in as many years that has been put out, and this is an honest to God album. Look at the track times there. They're all basically 5 minutes plus. So when you actually get into Egribor and you start to look at some information about them, you'll see them described as atmospheric black metal on just about every single write-up that you come across. But this feels more like post-metal, which, okay, atmospheric black metal, post-metal, maybe there's not a huge difference there. And maybe that's it. Maybe there's not quite sure what they are. Maybe they are atmospheric black metal with post-metal elements, or post-metal with atmospheric black metal elements. It doesn't really matter. It's just good. The fact that the tracks are so long allows them to morph and twist upon themselves. It's got that sort of progressive feel that post-metal, post-rock tends to have, where ideas start and then they transform into something else, and they might return to that idea or they might just completely abandon it. There are lots of riffs and melodies on this album, but this is basically just heavy music that you lose yourself. It's like an Opeth album. If you know what Opeth is or who Opeth are, and Opeth just released like probably one of the best metal albums. Again, I haven't heard it, but everybody raved about it last year. They released one of the best metal albums of last year, in many people's opinion. And this feels akin to an Opeth album. Um, it's good. If you can get past the harsh black metal vocals, those like the raspy sort of screams, and I'm going to be honest, they aren't that common on the album. If you can get past those vocals when they do appear, you're going to find an album which is very rewarding with each listen. It's going to be one that you want to come back to explore further. And when I'm thinking about which albums or which album I think is like the best one of the week, that's ultimately what I'm looking at. Which album do I want to come back to? Last week it was Oven by Slow. I came back to it again this week. I couldn't stop listening to it. I also went back and listened to um, the album by Mёртвая Вера, um, Запечатленный Дьявол, which I mentioned last week. Those were both really good. Ur by Egribor, I think, is another one of these. I know it's a lot of metal. That's just the way it is, evidently, at the start of the year. I don't have much that I can do about that. At some point in time, there's going to be a lot of indie music that we're talking about here. So, but yes, this is a hell of an album. And I want to give you a little bit of a taste of it. So, no, right. Honestly, this track right here, I'll try to find it. There's a bit that even has like something that reminds me of surf rock. It's already shifted. We're only half a minute in, and there's already been a bit of a shift. It's like the third tonal shift or the third tonal idea in the song thus far. I want to jump ahead for a second to the surf rock, oh, black rock vocals, the black metal. If you can handle those vocals, like I said, they're not very common throughout the total run time of the album. If you can handle that, you can just kind of like gloss them over, then this is a hell of an album. All right, we're gonna check out the surf rock bit here. What I think sounds like surf rock. Wipeout? I don't know. That tremolo. Just man. And then it shifts again. So phenomenal album. And I know for people who are following the metal scene here in Russia, Egribor in the last few years has started to make a name for itself. Their album last year came out in the second half of the year. I missed it. I know it definitely caught a bunch of attention then, and the fact that they were able to like so quickly turn around and put out another album is huge. So yeah, this was when I first heard it, I didn't pay enough attention to it, but it definitely wormed its way under my skin in the year of the snake, nonetheless. So, all right, the last album that we're going to talk about is just like last week with the fish. This is a digital re-release of an album from the late Soviet era. Nope, sorry, that's the Egribor album cover. It's got the snake. We are looking at Ритмическая гимнастика. And the instructor here is Olga Chipovskaya or Chipovskaya. I don't actually know how you pronounce the family name there. Probably Chipovskaya. This is, well, new year, new me, or new you, or whatever, right? And exercise is one of those things, one of the resolutions that many people do make for themselves. And we all know that aerobics are for everyone. So what better way to kind of kick off the new year here with your new healthy routine than with this album here? Like I said, this is from 1985. You can actually see that right there. It was re-released, so this is 40 years ago. Now, I guess it's re-released in the sense of it's on streaming platforms now. This is, I guess, sweating to the oldies, but from the Soviet era. It's one part aerobic instructions, and it's one part funky Soviet electro jams that feel like a precursor to Daft Punk. You might not actually be able to make it through the workout, either because you don't understand Russian, so you won't be able to follow along, or even if you do understand Russian, you might just not be able to stop yourself from grooving out and starting to dance. This is such an infectious album. I did not think I was going to enjoy listening to a reissue of a late Soviet era exercise vinyl, but this is a goddamn gem. So just play a few tracks here and there. It's it's so weird. It's so good.
Поочередные движения плечами вверх, приседая и выпрямляясь. И вниз. Вверх.
I love it.
Вниз. Вверх. Вниз. Вверх. Вниз. Вверх.
It's so fun. There's
Руки на пояс.
the juxtaposition of like
Полуприседание
the
с поворотами
serious
туловища.
exercise
И
instructor and
влево, вправо,
this music.
влево, вправо, влево, вправо, влево, вправо.
I'm gonna jump ahead a little bit.
Тебе на месте, не отрывая носков от пола.
Sorry, I jumped too far.
Правое, левое, правое, вверх,
Okay.
правое, левое, правое, левое. Переходим к ходьбе на месте, не отрывая носков от пола.
The tracks are all quite different too in terms of vibe. I mean, they're all energetic to some degree.
Полуприседание с наклоном
But
головы.
here we go,
И
shift.
влево, вправо, влево,
This is so
вправо.
goofy. I don't even know how to.
Назад, вперед, назад, влево, вправо, влево, вправо, вперед, назад, вперед, назад.
I would not be able to do the exercises. I would just be grooving along, having a good time. Gotta like one more track. Let's have a little bit of a sample of that as well. I think this was another pretty solid one from what I remember. Oh my god, just load already. Please.
Повернулись на правый бок.
It's called Rally, so it's got like a racing type of energy to it.
Повернулись на левый бок. Продолжаем махи правой ногой. И мах, рука, мах, рука. Раз, два, раз, два.
They're all good. Even the ones where she's telling you to sort of chill and catch your breath, they're all solid. So yes. Yeah, definitely. I don't know. I don't know if the second week of January had better releases than the first week. I think my pick of the week last week is still sitting atop its throne. But that said, I mean, that workout album by itself is in a league of its own. And yeah. Anyway, it doesn't matter. There definitely were some good albums here this week as well. Some memorable ones I'll be coming back to again and again. For sure, like that rhythmic gymnastics it's not going anywhere for me. and same with Egribor. Both of those are really great albums. I did not talk about any singles this week. I will put the link to the Spotify playlist also in the description for this video when it goes, obviously, to the rest of the channel. Basically, I'm not going to be talking about singles anymore unless like something major or earth shattering happens. Uh, every week, you can check out the singles playlist. I will put the new week's singles at the top of the list. So as we advance through the year, the older tracks will move further and further down. Um, so just check that out. I'm not going to put a limit as to how many singles I add per week. I think last week there were 13. This week, I think I added about 16 or something along those lines. So some weeks there will be more, some weeks there will be less. Um, Also, just to kind of, I guess, make the rules clear, if a single is then later put onto an album that is released in the year, I will remove it from the singles list because that becomes part of an album. So when I have singles on the singles playlist on Spotify, they are specifically songs that were released um, just as standalone songs. So, but yeah, that was pretty much all of the music that I was able to get through um, and that I felt was worth talking about for the second week of 2025. So hopefully you found something interesting there. Hopefully you found something worth listening to. I really hope that the audio worked this time because I will be very upset if it did not. But yeah, anyway, tune back in next Wednesday at 9 p.m. Moscow time or whatever your local time happens to be, or watch this whenever you have free time. And yeah, and then I'll be back Sunday evening at 9 p.m. Moscow time to do a rundown of all of the news that has happened here in Moscow over the week. But everyone have a good week until then, and I will see you, well, when I see you.